Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Su. I'm a graduate student in the Department of Anthropology here at Princeton. And my Center for Health and Wellbeing project this summer was entitled Rethinking Space and Place with Chinese Medicine, COVID-19 and Beyond. So, as an anthropologist in training, one of my kind of primary research topics prior to the pandemic was the kind of rapid expansion of the Chinese medicine industry in China and the ways that that industry was increasingly underlying a lot of different political, medical, economic plans. So when the pandemic hit, it wasn't only personally impactful in terms of my day-to-day rhythms, but it also was very influential in terms of, the shape of my research and what that would look like in the long term. So with that in mind, I kind of very urgently applied for funding from the Center for Health and Wellbeing to research basically the interface between Chinese medicine, public health, and urban space before and after COVID-19. In particular, a few observations kind of guided this proposal for me. I was not only interested in, for example, the fact that herbal Chinese medicine supplements and medications um, made it into 91.5% of COVID-19 hospital treatments in China, which makes it, obviously very crucial and necessary to any analysis of the pandemic's effects in the nation. But I was also interested in, for example, Chinese medicine exercises, which are officially categorized as part of Chinese medicine in mainland China, such as Qigong and Tai Chi, as we can see from the pictures here, which are very social activities that implicate social space, public health, urban planning, because they often take place in urban public parks in China. And so they also kind of sit at this nexus of things that I thought was very interesting to research. And in particular, what I found was that in a lot of makeshift hospitals, as we heard of the fact that China, built hospitals from the ground up in a few days to treat COVID, and the existing hospitals, a lot of the architectures were appropriated to accommodate group exercise formations, such as this one right here in this image. And I thought that this was really interesting. And so I used this as kind of a launching ground, a launching point to think about just basically the relationships between social space and Chinese medicine practice in China under COVID-19. And in particular, I was thinking about maybe how, COVID-19 could go back and reformulate what we thought of as these kind of Chinese medicine practices and what consequences that would have for the practice of Chinese medicine. In particular, I was really interested by, there are a lot of actually Chinese medicine theories that postulate the circulation of collective air and energies within these Qigong and Tai Chi exercises. And so you can kind of guess how those theories might be anathema to what we would think of as proper COVID-19 prevention measures. So that kind of dilemma is what I was trying to think about in terms of how Chinese medicine theory and practice would reformulate itself during and after the pandemic. So in terms of methods, as an anthropologist, I used participant observation and interviews. I attended a lot of Chinese medicine conferences and events. I spoke with practitioners, laymen seeking Chinese medicine treatment, things like that. And then I also consulted CNKI, which is one of China's largest research databases. And so I actually got to accrue a lot of primary sources around Chinese medicine theory and practice. And they hosted a huge, actually, COVID-19 and traditional Chinese medicine related kind of global lecture series this summer, since Chinese medicine is being very much promoted for COVID-19 treatment. So in the end, my research took a very different shape than what I expected. And this primarily owes to the fact that China imposed such strict and harsh restrictions and lockdowns to treat COVID-19. And that, ended up actually, I think, preventing my observation of any new practices that had to, reinvent themselves in order to meet pandemic regulations. By the summer, many of those I spoke with were participating in, normal social activities in urban spaces, including Qigong and Tai Chi. And so there was no kind of issue about the circulation of air and things like that whatsoever. However, I think what I encountered in my project was actually perhaps even more interesting than what I originally proposed. So many practitioners I spoke with brought up the ecological five-phase system in Chinese medicine, which is kind of an ancient idea of fire, earth, metal, water, wood, and these different elements, their material presence in relation to our bodies, and also the way that they flow throughout our lives has a lot to do with, for example, our health and well-being. So in my conversations with my interlocutors this summer, I found a lot of talk about the ways that, for example, the materials that comprise urban architectures or the spatial flows that urban spaces prevent or allow, that those have actually a lot to do with the transmissibility of viruses and other social problems. Um, in fact, one Chinese medicine practitioner that I spoke with actually gestured to her iPhone and was thinking about the ways that, for example, the rare earth metals in iPhones might, in her theory, have something to do with the health of the body and the ecological system at large, and might have something to do with pandemic prevention in the future. So very, very crucially, what I found was that a kind of universal one-size-fits-all conception of public space during and after pandemic times, for example, the 6 feet regulation or the 2 meters social distancing regulation, those don't really encompass all of the theories of public space that are being implemented now in terms of pandemic preventions for the future. And in particular, maybe most exciting, I found two kind of post-pandemic, pandemic-proof smart cities that are going to be commissioned over the next several years in China um, that will incorporate, ecological visions and also, pandemic-proof regulations that incorporate Chinese medicine-related insights into their urban planning. So with this in mind, my main takeaway is that we need to really, really reckon with the idea that Chinese medicine is being used increasingly to shore up a particular vision of social space under and after pandemic conditions. So much more research will have to be done on my part and others on the future of entanglements between Chinese medicine practitioners, theory, health policy, urban planning, and political authority in China. And with that in mind, I'm very excited to perhaps proceed with that as a long-term dissertation project. Basically just to examine how Chinese medicine continues to be a powerful hinge through which political, economic, medical, ecological, urban visions are being articulated, especially during and after COVID-19. With that in mind, that has significant impacts for policy in China, and it also has significant impacts for the ways that, for example, anthropologists, sociologists, historians, and political studies, political scholars in China and the U.S. and elsewhere reckon with ideas such as generality and specificity and things like that in their tellings of the pandemic narratives and beyond. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank the Center for Health and Wellbeing for funding this, and I'm very excited to see where my research goes after this. Thanks.